Good afternoon, this is Jeff with Sewer Tech Northwest. We are at 11621 Southwest Barcelona Street. I describe everything as if you're facing the house from the road. We are just to the left of the door, just to the right of the garage door. Between the two here, you have a 3-inch ABS cleanout, hides under a big steel plate that says sewer on it. We're going to check the overall condition, serviceability of the sanitary sewer line. Water is running. We are zeroed out, and off we go. Transitioning there to 4-inch 3034 PVC. Clean my camera lens up there a little bit. And that first little bit of the line there, first maybe 2-3 feet or so, has the appearance right now there might be a little bit of standing water in the line. Thus far it looks like it's just a little bit. We'll come back and take a second look at that little guy right there. It looks like some object. I'll do a toilet flush. It looks like something that's gonna tumble its way through the sewer line, and it's too small on its own to cause a blockage. Almost looks like a little tiny battery from a lithium battery from a flashlight. And here's the main here at about 41 feet. We're gonna go locate really quick here while the line drains out, and we'll take a second look at everything as we come back.
Yeah, I used to.
All right, now that I'm looking at this closer, what that looks like is someone peeled a label off of something. And if you've ever done that before, they kind of roll up on themselves. That's what that looks like. It looks a lot less like a battery now. I'm gonna flush the toilet really quick just to see if it'll move. That thing is, I mean, I'll recommend jetting because there's a foreign object in here. That little thing is so small there, it has almost no chance. It would be nearly impossible for that to cause a blockage. And most likely anything coming down line, toilet paper or whatnot, is gonna bump into that and move it on its way. And we'll see if we can help it along here with the toilet flush. But it's managed to already get 19 feet down the line on its own. Well, the toilet flush, though, it's just sitting barely out of the water line there, and if there's any adhesive on that little wrapper or label, that's what it looks like anyway, it's probably going to get kind of stuck to the sidewall. I'll recommend cleaning on it, but I mean, it's really, I mean, that's like purely out of liability. The likelihood of that thing causing anything, you've got a 4-inch line here, that thing is occupying, I mean, like, we're talking a couple percentage points of the entire diameter of the line there, and it's up out of the flow line on top of that. So I'll notate it on the report, but that will likely move on its way, especially being that it's been in a line that's by and large been dry this entire time. Sometimes balls of tape get down lines from flip houses, construction projects, a ball of painter's tape will get down the line. Stuff like that will sometimes get stuck in a bone dry line. Once there's moisture in the pipe all the time, everything's getting wet, steamed up, a lot of times the adhesives lose their stickiness and they just move off on their way. So if it gets cleaned out, great, but that thing is so minor there. Normally I recommend rescoping after cleaning. That's one that I really don't even think is necessary to rescope, as on its own, it has almost no chance of causing anything to occur. If you're blocking up on that thing, you're flushing some crazy stuff down your sewer line, and it would have essentially nothing to do with the item at all. So you've got a little bit of standing water here that dissipates off here at about 3 foot 6 inches. At its worst point here, I mean, we're talking like maybe a 1/16 of an inch of standing water, even for new construction. I mean, for reference, I don't even consider repairs on bellies and plastic pipe until there's at least an inch of water for 5 feet. That's static, no water running at all. Even at that point in a plastic sewer line, it still is almost entirely up to the homeowner as to whether that ever manifests itself. Standing water that minor has zero bearing on functionality at all. Though we do have some standing water going back into the crawl space. And at this point, we're back to the foundation wall. I wanted to see where that standing water originated from. So you've got some standing water that goes back about almost 7 feet back into the crawl. And this spot here, theoretically anyway, be easier to correct. The driveway area, I mean, to go tearing up a driveway over standing water that minor just does not make sense, even for new stuff like this. What I always recommend, though, on new construction, generally speaking, most settling occurs almost instantaneously after a line is buried. Sometimes it'll progressively settle in the first few days after being buried, but it usually happens almost immediately. I do recommend rescoping the line at about 9 months into the 1-year warranty to ensure that there's no progression taking place. Every now and then I will catch them progressing. 9.9 times out of 10, they look exactly the same. Usually to get progressive settling, you need to have bad pipe joints that are sucking dirt and groundwater through them, hydro eroding the support out front of the line. This belly here is a little bit more significant. The only reason I'm talking about it for the most part here, if this were not brand new construction, I wouldn't be talking about this much. This one here is holding somewhere around a 1/2 inch or so of standing water. So it's one that ideally I'd like to see corrected, but even, I mean, this kind of standing water still, it comes down to what's going down the line. There is some grainy texture though. I think a decent compromise, if this is something that's going to require cutting the driveway in order to fully correct that belly, that is the case in a lot of circumstances when you have standing water that's continuous, you know, where part of the belly is outside, part of it's inside. That to me does not make sense, even for a brand new construction house. A 1/2 inch of standing water like that is the kind of area that you will get buildup in if you're dumping your fat fryers down the line, tons of grease, lots of improper stuff. And this is, you know, we're barely hitting that 1/2 inch mark here. That's one I'm going to recommend correction on, but if it gets to the point where you're going to end up with a big old patch in your brand new driveway, in my opinion, honestly, I don't know if that's worth messing with, if it's going to require that. If it can be corrected from just purely inside the crawl space, I think that makes more sense. They can put a little bit, hike that up a little bit, that'd be great. There is some grainy texture in that standing water. Like, I can't tell if maybe some grout, paint, something got down line and is hung up in the belly. So from that standpoint, you know, I think it would be at least worthwhile to clean the line out, get some of that gritty texture out of there so that doesn't contribute to anything. I've been doing this 13 years, 25,000 sewer lines I've scoped, and standing water like that, it does not just magically cause problems. It requires the homeowner to be very much involved with it in order to get it to a point of causing issues. So if any corrections do happen, I do recommend rescoping to check the work. As this line currently sits, it has good flow of the main lateral connection. That kind of standing water has very little bearing on functionality, not unless you're abusing the line and doing it on a pretty consistent basis. But I will recommend a correction there from, you know, at least it's probably about the last 5 feet or so of the ABS right before it leaves the house, but it does look like that standing water is continuous with the standing water on the outside of the house. So it may not be something that you can fully correct without tearing up the driveway, and that, in my opinion, does not make sense in this case. It's just too minor. But I do recommend at least getting it clean so there's that gritty texture is not there. And that debris will also kind of displace the water to an extent and exaggerate it. You're not going to see a huge reduction in water, but it will reduce that, and you'll take some of that grainy texture out of there that, you know, if you flush something really big down the line that slowed down through there, you just don't want that contributing to anything. Overall though, line's all intact, has adequate flow of the main lateral connection at this time. If no repairs or anything are done here at this time, it just gets cleaned. I would make sure you rescope about 9 months in, just to make sure that nothing progresses or changes.